Today, we have the first day of recreational legal marijuana in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
This is history in the making. You know, I never thought in my lifetime that we would see this being sold for recreation in a business standpoint. But I look at it as it being history. We're seeing the end of a prohibition here.
First day of legal weed sales. Long time coming, and we're grateful for it. I have 2 artificial knees, 2 artificial hips, a pin in my shoulder, but I take no opiates. And marijuana got me off of opiates, and I'm truly grateful for that.
I'm 36 years old and I never thought this day would happen, but I'm so glad it did. I don't do nothing else and I stay out of trouble. I don't want to be in trouble for marijuana ever again.
The people have spoken, and now the people will be smoking. And that's where we're at.
It is an historic day in Michigan. Recreational marijuana now officially on sale. There are 3 shops in Ann Arbor licensed who started selling at 10 this morning. People camped out in tents overnight, hoping to be among the very first to buy. Our Victor Williams was in Ann Arbor this morning, where people from all around the region came to Ann Arbor to buy pot.
Yes, it's official. You can now buy plenty of this stuff, recreational marijuana, legally. And it's an attraction that's bringing in customers from all over. Dozens lined up in front of exclusive dispensary in Ann Arbor Sunday morning to usher in a new era when it comes to marijuana in the state of Michigan.
It's a momentous occasion. I mean, you think about it, this is awesome.
And it's a moment that Ahmad Ismail has been waiting for since his mid-20s.
I'm so happy to see it happen. People that have care issues, people that just want to enjoy it recreationally. It's a long time in coming.
Some even camped out over 10 hours just to be the first customers in the new world of legal weed.
We just want to get here early and
it's great.
However, not every city is on board. Metro Detroit and others have opted out of allowing the recreational sale to take place altogether.
These cities that are outlawing, it's sort of silly because the motion's happening. And people are going to get it where they have to go.
But considering the amount of customers that showed up opening day, there's a chance that's probably going to change in the near future. In Ann Arbor, Victor Williams, Local 4.
Now, there is a 10% excise tax on recreational marijuana. Also, with the state's 6% sales tax, the state believes that sales will be in the hundreds of millions of dollars in the first year. For a look at the rules on what and how you can buy, the shops that can sell, and the communities opting out of recreational marijuana, just visit our webpage. Click on Detroit.com.
So it's been legal for nearly a year, but this weekend is the first time anyone can walk into a few select stores and buy recreational pot here in Michigan. Sales begin Sunday morning in Ann Arbor.
And regulators say users should expect long lines, high prices, and a shortage of product in the early months. Right now, just 6 stores are licensed to sell in Michigan, 4 in Ann Arbor, 1 in Everett near Cadillac, and 1 in Morenci near the Ohio state line. Priya Mann is in Ann Arbor tonight, ground zero for the marijuana movement here in Metro Detroit.
Starting Sunday, if you're 21 and over, you'll be able to legally buy pot in the state of Michigan. But there's one caveat. There's only a handful of marijuana retailers that'll be able to sell it.
I think that we've made a lot of progress in the past 10 years, and I'm just excited to see where 2020 takes us.
Greenstone Provisions and 2 other pot shops in Ann Arbor will begin selling marijuana to adults Sunday morning.
I mean, it's like a milestone. We're writing history right now, not in the state, but just overall in the country.
Doors open at 11, and they anticipate long lines and running out of product. Anyone 21 and over with a valid license can buy up to 2.5 ounces of weed.
You actually finally have a couple places where you can buy adult use cannabis, where previously there was 0.
But most locations in Michigan will continue to require.
Majority will be medical.
And then also just straight flower also.
Nate Kurtner has a medical marijuana card and now lives in Tennessee working in the hemp industry.
They definitely look up to Michigan a lot in terms of legislation and like how to do things the right way.
Only a handful of Michigan retailers will be able to sell adult-use marijuana because municipalities control who gets a license. In anticipation of shortages, approved businesses can transfer half of the medical inventory they've had for a month to adult use.
I mean, there's major concerns. I just don't think there's enough product right now. Hopefully the MRA will start approving more processors and more cultivators, and the customers will be able to get the cannabis that they want.
So if you're sitting in Detroit or Warren, for example, and you're wondering why you can't legally buy adult use marijuana in your city, your best bet is to start lobbying your municipal government to opt in. Reporting from Ann Arbor, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
There's the line. So the line wrapped all the way around. It's about 2 blocks total.
So we got 5 forbidden jellies.
What's a forbidden jelly?
Forbidden jelly is an indica hybrid.
I'm going to smoke it anyway.
Here we have John Sinclair, the activist who was given 10-year sentence for 2 joints that basically kicked off the whole legalization movement in Michigan and probably, nationwide. Although other things were happening around the country at the same time that happened to him, the 2-joint 10-year sentence was quite the, this basically everybody knew about it.
Cool. So with that, your total comes up to $160.35. Just like that.
Thanks, Pat.
No problem, John.
So we had to prove there wasn't a narcotic, and that 9.5 to 10 years for 2 joints possession was cruel and unusual punishment.
So, I mean, it's been a long journey to legalization. How does it feel to be here today?
It feels good. Physically, I'm a wreck, but I'm glad to be here. Relative to the legal stuff, to me, that's all for other people. It should never bother me. I've had weed every day since 1962, so I don't worry about all this bullshit, pardon my expression. But I'm glad for the average person that they don't have to worry about this war.
So weird. With the Thanksgiving.
It's just a man, it's got to fade away. It's going to take a while because it's so deeply ingrained. They got 80 years of hegemony of this crap. And they're convinced all these people that there was something wrong with weed. There's nothing wrong with weed. There never has been. There never will be. It's good stuff.
So, welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. My name is Brando, the Weed Commando, and I live in Michigan, so I do reports about Michigan when stuff in Michigan happens that matters. And I endorsed the it would have been 16, but it ended up being 2018 ballot initiative to legalize marijuana in Michigan, not because I loved it and I thought it was the greatest thing ever and I helped write it or any of that. I have a lot of problems with it. And in my endorsement video, I did mention a couple things. One was that I strictly don't want to hear any excuses about voting no because of anything in the bill. When you weigh that against the fact that it had the best decriminalization platform out of basically any other marijuana legalization in the country. So I even interviewed people from the campaign, and they convinced me of the fact that this decriminalization was as good as it looked like on paper, and so far as I can tell, it is. We haven't seen the 17,000 a year arrests that were on the rise every year after we legalized medical marijuana. We haven't seen that. And as far as I know, when you get pulled over and if they find weed in your possession, they can't take you to jail even if it is a little bit over the amount you're supposed to have. Or if it's a bunch over. They just take the extra weed. I think you get a ticket. I'm not sure what that is, and I don't care. So anyway, another thing I mentioned in that video was that when I was a kid and we were smoking weed and we were talking about legalizing it because of this great injustice, and when I say kid, I mean teenager. When I was younger, I didn't, this is 20 years ago or so. I did not have any idea what legal marijuana would actually look like. Nobody did. What we did envision was marketplaces with marijuana in them. Like, we envisioned Marlboro having packs of joints. We envisioned places where, roadside markets where you could go buy clones and bulk flour. Grocery stores would be able to sell products that were made from cannabis. It would just be more integrated like it's supposed to be into everything that's already there. Not this thing where, we're going to sell it to you off to the side in this little nondescript building with a bunch of, highly regulated rules around it. Things that don't make sense, like purchasing limits and, undue taxes. I mean, you hear that there's 10% excise tax on top of the 6% sales tax, unjustified. You have absolutely no way to justify that. Anybody that agreed on that, they're absolutely insane. No other industry has been taxed as hard as marijuana in Michigan, period. And another point I would make about what these people are saying in this video is this overabundance of caution when it comes to how many stores there are, where they're located, acting like that this is, that there's a proliferation going on. Well, there really isn't. Most people in Michigan don't live anywhere near the 6 places that were selling recreational on the opening day. And then they talk about shortages. Now, these are all stories that we've heard from all the other places that legalized marijuana when they had a rollout. We're going to have shortages and we're going to have to steal weed from the medical marijuana and put it in the recreational. And all of that is basically just bullshit. I don't know who writes these stories and just ships them out to people. But if there is a shortage, it's because of the regulations. If there is a shortage, it's because they're not letting enough people get in the light, as in come out of the shadows. There's no shortages. There's never going to be a shortage of marijuana in Michigan. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Because there's people out there that have been growing weed since way before this legalization bullshit ever happened. And I call it bullshit because it's just another political issue now. What are we going to do now with it? And, basically, we're saying you should probably lower the taxes a little bit and loosen up the regulations, but they're talking about going harder. They're talking about raising taxes. They're talking about enforcing the regulations more, as in with the police. And this is the same thing we've seen in California. They just did it. They just raised the rates, taxes, and regulation fees because who knows why. I mean, it's already the highest priced weed you can buy in the whole country. Why would you want to make it even more expensive when you're complaining that the black market still has too big of a share of the market? It's like you don't understand your own economic shortcomings when they're just as obvious as the nose on your face. You can't raise the price at the store and expect people to go there still when they can just go to the same guy they've been buying weed from for 40 years. And then people have, even in this video where I don't know, one of the people that were interviewed said that it's better that that you could go to the store and buy it instead of having to go to the illicit market where you don't know what you're getting. Now, I don't totally hate that talking point, but it's not as accurate as, it's not as black and white as that. Let's just say that. For example, if you've been getting the same weed from the same person for 20, 30 years, and it's clean, it's good, it's better than the overpriced stuff at the dispensary anyway, etc., there's really no reason to act like the dispensary's got your back on the better weed and the cleaner weed. And when I say the cleaner weed, I do mean that we have seen case after case of these corporate producers corrupting the labs. And here's what happens. You take your sample to the lab, and it comes back with some chemicals or some pesticides or some funk in there that ain't supposed to be there. And now your whole batch is at stake. And all the products you made from that batch could be considered part of that batch. You're losing thousands of dollars. Okay, instead of doing that, you can just throw one of those thousands back at the lab, tell them to look the other way, or act like the whole thing ain't contaminated just because of one little sample. This has happened in every place that has regulations, which is everywhere where there's legal weed. The whole country of Canada, where it's almost government, it's almost the government's project, all the way. And the companies that have been allowed to rise to the top and own all the market share are government backed monopolies. And every time we've seen it, they corrupt the lab. Like, it's almost every month, and sometimes twice a month, that we see reports of the labs getting corrupted in Canada. Same story coming out of California, same story coming out of Michigan, same story coming out of Colorado. We've seen the labs getting corrupted. So how are we supposed to, as consumers, really trust that system if it's all corrupted and you don't know if somebody's sample is good or not? I don't know. I'm just going by what I'm seeing in the headlines, because I don't really go to the dispensary and I don't really participate in the regulated market because I don't have any way to get in. Quite frankly, I'm not rich. I don't have millions of dollars, and that's the whole problem. So, I'm just basically forced out of the market. And I'm not going to go get a job at the weed factory. No way. But when it comes down to the recreational sales in Michigan, it basically went off without a hitch, to be honest. I could say that my top complaints have already been said, that there's not enough stores, there's not enough people involved in the marketplace. And when you have too few people involved in the marketplace, all of a sudden you have different standards, and it's not good, man. I can't say that it's good. We're going to read a couple of articles, though, because we have stuff to talk about with this. Where we're sitting. All right, edit that at... we're about... It don't even say. That sucks. According to this, we're about 17 minutes in. So, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so the first thing we got are recreational prices high in Michigan's legal market. Now, this was going to be like a no-brainer, right? Because if you're used to the prices that you pay for recreational marijuana outside of the dispensary, these were probably some jaw droppers. And we seen in that video they had let's see if we can find it real quick. Let's just take a gander at these prices here. Flour, you're ranging from $48 an eighth plus the 10% tax plus the 16% tax on any of these numbers I'm giving you. So that's about $5 in the $50 area. $5 to $6 add on. So you have the low of 48 for Skywalker, and the high price here, 68 for everything on Purple. Come on down on that list. Grams, $22 a gram. Now I've never seen a $20 gram in my whole life, but $22 is just another extra slap in the face, and the tax on that is probably right around $2.50, $3. So you're looking at a $25 gram. I don't know about you, but I know a gram, I usually can only get about a joint out of a gram. And then we see these pre-rolls down there, $15. I think they charged John Sinclair. He got out the door with 10 pre-rolls for $160, I think was the price. Recreational marijuana sales began in Michigan on Sunday, ending decades of prohibition. But cannabis consumers who waited in long lines to celebrate the historic day were greeted with prices for higher than the black market. It seems like there's a different market. Like they're anticipating that the market is has more money than the medical marijuana market. So the cost of an eighth of premium flower hovered above 50 to 60, nearly twice what you'd pay at a good street connection. That's almost 3 times what an eighth cost on the street, by the way. And that's before you pay a 10% excise tax and a 6% sales tax. An ounce of high-grade marijuana exceeded $400 after taxes for some varieties. Only 3 dispensaries were ready to open their doors on Sunday. All were in Ann Arbor. The prices didn't seem to tamper the excitement of buying legal marijuana. Some people waited in line for several hours, and some dispensaries ran out of strains. Too early to tell what impact legal sales will have on the black market. In California, black market sales outnumbered sanctioned ones nearly 2 years after recreational pot was legalized, according to the Bureau of Cannabis Control. And like I said, they just raised the taxes again. Prices aren't the only reason the black market may stay strong in Michigan. About 79% of the state's 1,773 cities, townships, and villages have chosen to prevent marijuana businesses from opening, even though voters in most municipalities supported legalization of pot for anyone 21 years or older in November of 2018. Yeah, and you know, that's just like those doofuses that when alcohol prohibition was lifted, they decided that they were going to be like a dry county or whatever. There's probably still a few of those left down in the Bible Belt where you can't even like breathe without your neighbor criticizing you. This is just so ridiculous that people care about, you know, whether or not weed is getting sold in your town on in a store legally, legitimately, you know. And by the way, if it's not, then I guarantee you that somebody in your town, if not a lot of people in your town, will be selling weed out of their front door. And then these dummies are also going to miss out on that 10% excise tax on recreational marijuana sales, because everybody that has opted in, municipalities get a split of that. So how stupid? Not only are you stupid because you're just an idiot and you're playing this culture war bullshit that's been over forever. I don't like marijuana, so none of it in my town. And it's so ignorant and stupid. There's no fucking excuse for it. I'm getting mad about this. There's literally no excuse for it. Especially when you're like Flint, Michigan, for example. Because I hear all these Democrats in Lansing, they're out there talking about how they want to give back to the communities that were affected the most by the marijuana prohibition. The black and brown communities, they keep saying. I think they're just saying it to whip up votes or something. It doesn't make sense because, A, they're not doing that in practice anywhere. You go to the fucking licensing board at Laura in Lansing and ask them how many black business owners own marijuana businesses and where are they located. I guarantee you, for Flint, you're going to get 0 and not Flint. Detroit, I don't even know, but they don't have recreational either, so 0 there. Benton Harbor, same story. How about Buena Vista, same story. Saginaw, same story. Every one of the communities that are the most minority populated and have the most highest rates of arrest for marijuana, none of them can even get licenses. So that talking point is bullshit. All you guys that opted out of weed, you're full of shit. And not only are you, it's just this curmudgeon-y, culture war bullshit that we're all sick of and it's cringy, but you're also missing out on millions of dollars that's getting split up. They're talking about we're projected to get $180.5 million in taxes. That's crazy right off the bat. But you're saying, no, I don't want a cut of that pie. How stupid. And all your reasons that you think legalization and having weed sales in your town is negative, like, oh, but the kids, oh, but we're going to be looked at as a pot town. All those reasons are dumb and bullshit, and they're not even a thing. And if you look into it more, when you have legal marijuana sales, crime actually goes down, especially around the area where the dispensary is, and you don't have a bunch of people getting caught selling weed all the time. Gee, I wonder why. Because you know where it's happening. It's right there at that store. And you can even write your ordinance so that the store don't even look like a weed store at all. Well, we got to hear from somebody about this, so we're going to go talk to, and this is Larry Gabriel that wrote this article for Metro Times. The last one was Steve Neveling, by the way. Thank you, Steve, for that one. And Larry Gabriel, he's more of the weed writer of the paper. Detroit Councilman James Tate, who's been a prohibitionist every time I do stories about Detroit, it's because this guy's trying to do something to make weed not accessible to people in his neighborhood. And I think that's just disingenuous, it's foolish, and it has connotations of mixing religion with state, which shouldn't be legal, it should be frowned upon. But he comes from a religious place. At least that's what I got from the last time he was out there making headlines. But now he's talking about why the city bans sales, for now. Oh boy, here we go. And this is the excuse that I've heard time and time again when it was medical marijuana and people were supposed to opt out, and they opted out because they weren't ready yet. And this is the argument that the police make before legalization happens, that is going to happen on a certain date. They're like, wait a minute. Remember Canada? I mean, it seems like Canada delayed 3 years in a row because the cops are like, oh, I can't, we're not ready yet, man. We need more money and cops and stuff. Like legalizing something makes it so it's more enforceable, which should tell you something about legalizing something. All right, anyway, Detroit City Councilman James Tate is feeling the heat regarding the council's choice to temporarily opt out of adult use marijuana sales in the city. Tate is a council member who has taken the lead in drafting an ordinance to govern marijuana stores in the city. He says that he has no doubt that it will get passed and that adult use marijuana sales face no significant opposition in the council. Quote, there's no unreadiness to pass the ordinance to allow it, says Tate. There is unreadiness to just pass any ordinance without proper deliberation and consideration for what's being proposed. And I got something for you, dude. Oh, he says this is a marathon, not a sprint. Well, you know what? The goddamn gun at the starting line went off a year ago. Remember that? When we legalized marijuana? That was a whole year ago. Can you tell me how many meetings you've had? Can you tell me how many times you've gotten together to look at your little plan and argue about it and hammer out the finer points of it? It's ridiculous. Tate points out that there has not been enough time for the council to respond to state rules that were announced in July. Oh, come on. Because you could have already been writing rules, and then when they announced their rules, you could have just made sure your rules were still in compliance, and if not, make some minor adjustments. Then, in a surprise move, the Marijuana Regulatory Agency announced that adult use sales would start on December 1st and not early 2020 as originally planned, leaving Detroit little choice but to postpone the sales. Now, none of that is right. So, when you're talking about this idea that they just surprisingly announced this December 1st date, no, we were anticipating it to be around December 1st because there was a 1 year from when it was actually certified that they were going to, that the first license was going to be allowed to be given out. If somebody said that, the sales were going to definitely start in early 2020, that's a vague thing to say. We have an exact date. I don't know what it is right off the top of my head, but I believe it was something like December. It might even have been December 1st. But I think it was somewhere in the first week of December when they finally came back a month after the votes were cast and was like, yep, the ballots are initiatives and all the votes are certified. Just, if you don't believe me, look into it. And anyway, it's written right into the law that the first recreational license can be given 1 year after the law is certified. So give me a break with this, big shocker that they started sales on December 1st. Come on. You're full of shit, dude. And if you were working with the people in Lansing all along, like they were in Ann Arbor, you'd have people with doors open on that day. But that doesn't even matter. You could have your shit together so that people could be getting licenses right now. Like you're just talking now instead of doing something. What do we pay you for? Any ordinance that we put out, we have to make sure the community who oppose it and who support it have time to review it and chime in. No, you don't. It's the law. If you oppose the law, then you're just like everybody else that opposes laws. Who cares? Go jump in the fucking peanut gallery. By the way, they can petition to change shit too. And also, who are these people that oppose any regulations you might put out there? I guess that depends on what your regulations look like. Because it doesn't sound to me like you really know what you're doing. And I'd probably be pretty mad if I seen your regulations. Remember those prices, guys. This is what this guy's like walking away from. You don't care about that split of the excise tax or none of that. And Detroit, you know, they suffered pretty hard under the drug war, but fuck them. Detroit's decision was in line with more than 79% of Michigan's municipalities which have banned marijuana sales, which mean many simply kicking the can until the communities roll out recreational marijuana sales so they can see how it goes. As if there isn't examples from you know, San Diego to Maine to let you know how that's going to work, dude. Or even look at, so far we've had medical marijuana sales state regulated and rolled out since 2017. How's that going? That hasn't been a disaster. In fact, there's places in Detroit doing pretty good with that. Anyway, there's another factor for Detroit's temporary ban. Tate says that the council is working to make the social equity portion of the law effective, as Detroit is one of the communities that took a big hit during the war on drugs, which has disproportionately impacted people of color. So now you're going to use that as an excuse to kick the can down the road. Boy, oh boy, those minorities that got affected by the drug war are sure fucking glad they got you on their side. I mean, come on, dude. And what are you really going to do? What are you really going to do? I would really, you know, and being these city councils are always corrupt as all hell, I'm guessing he's waiting for the person with the right amount of money to give him ideas. And I guarantee you that the first business, or, you know, when you see the first 5 recreational licenses in Detroit, probably all of them are going to be national corporate brands. I'm almost going to bet the bank on it. If anyone wants to take that bet, hit me below. We'll see what we can work out. Because I'm just so positive that this is what is going on here. So the new industry is a chance for some Detroiters to, quote, gain financially in a way they have not been able to do before, says Tate. That's the struggle. I'm trying to figure out what the sweet spot is. Well, I'll tell you this, Tate. The sweet spot isn't for you to enrich, you know, 2 or 3 even black people in the hood so that they become very rich, while you're still going to have people getting arrested for not following the regulations. That's what I'm saying. So if somebody's getting caught selling a dime bag on Gratiot, then he's gone. While somebody over in the Eastern Market is buying a fucking $100 eighth and a gram of shatter for fucking $2.50. Please fuck off, man. With this equity bullshit. It isn't working. You aren't doing it, and it doesn't look good even if you envisioned a hypothetical situation. On that point, there is no model to follow. Tate is also considering a special designation for legacy Detroiters, people who have lived here for 10 or 15 years. That's fine too, but it still doesn't really fucking cover the guy that just got out of Jackson prison for weed charges. It still doesn't help the family that was fucking split up into pieces because their dad had to go do a fucking 5-piece for some possession charge. It doesn't help those people. And it doesn't fucking help the guy that's still, you know, growing 10 plants in his basement, fucking slinging dubs. It doesn't help them. This is not legalization, man. This is just picking the winners and making capitalism make somebody a rich star and then have a bunch of people, oh, I can strive to become that guy. Well, first you have to live in the community that was affected the hardest by the Prohibition for 10 to 15 years, because that's a big deal. Come on, and it's like every time they try to do this, it's like try to pick a new identity to project the thing that you want everybody to think is a good cause. We don't even care, man. This isn't like giving the Native Americans the right to catch as many fish as they want or run casinos. I mean, this is this is just not what it is, and you're not going to ever do it. This equity shit, I wish they would just stop talking about it, because it's just like I said, it's another reason to not do shit and still talk shit. Then it becomes a question of how many retail outlets should be allowed in Detroit. There's also the issue of finding money to fund startups. Quote, "We are not setting our sights on being the first," says Tate. "We want to make this industry reflect the community." Well, I'll tell you what, man. It doesn't reflect the weed community by having a big weed store on the corner where they sell fucking $100 eighths, and you have the guy that's, you know, the guy with the dreads and the fucking house that smells like weed and incense is getting loaded into the back of a raid van with his fucking 20 plants getting loaded in. That's not what the fucking culture is, dude. That's not what the community is. And all you're doing is being basically a stick in the mud, man. I don't like what you're doing. It's not working. You want to know how I would do it different? I don't got time to talk about it, but nothing that this guy says is anything but a kick the can. Finally, and this is the last I'm going to say about this shit, unless someone challenges anything I said. I guess I'm going all Metro Times with these reports. Now we have reefer madness emerging in Michigan, just like everywhere else. Just like every time 420 rolls around, you hear all these people talking about, you know, in the news about how, you know, 420, you better watch out because all those stoners are out there driving around. You're going to get smoked. Well, every time somebody legalizes weed, right around the time sales starts, you hear this talk about stone driving. It's the most talked about thing there is during legalization season. The very same day, this is Lee DeVito. The very same day legal marijuana sales started in Michigan, the state descended into chaos, or at least that's what Michigan State Police and the conservative news media seem to want you to believe. Quote, "It's become legal to purchase pot in Michigan on Sunday by 9 a.m. Michigan State Police had made their first arrest for driving high after a man crashed into a state police vehicle in Oakland County." Of course it would be Oakland County to stage such insane fake news. Fuck you, Oakland clown. You guys are just such clowns with this prohibition shit. And of course it's because Oakland County is the most Republican, right-wing, conservative, Christian bullshit county in Michigan. They hate weed. They hate it. That's all I gotta say. They absolutely hate weed in Oakland County. Here's their crazy, complicit propaganda pushers, the Detroit News, pushing this bullshit. "It became legal to purchase pot and blah, 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 crashed into a state police vehicle." And here's a whole article. I'm not going to read that. There are a few problems with the Detroit News' version of events, however. As the article notes, the accident happened at 9 a.m. Remember those lines? That was like middle of the day. Sales didn't even start till 10, guys. So it doesn't even make sense that this guy was coming out of the dispensary and, you know, "Oh yeah, I got my weed, now I'm going to go home and on my way I'm going to, of course, smoke it all," and crash into a state police truck. Every time in Michigan that they got this stone driving thing, it's some over-the-top shit. Like, here goes a kid that blew a stop sign and wiped out a semi-truck and killed a whole family somehow. Yeah, it was weed. Come on, man. Weed doesn't make you drive like shit. It just doesn't. Alright, so furthermore, the accident happened in Springfield Township, which is 50 miles from Ann Arbor. The only place where weed was being sold that day. Legally. State Police Sarah Klebs told the paper that the driver, 51-year-old man, admitted to smoking marijuana before the incident. The word "before" in parentheses is doing a lot of work here. How before are we talking about? While driving that morning, the night before? And that's the thing, is it doesn't really matter. Because you literally would have to be smoking while you're driving for it to make you fuck up that bad. To smoke a fucking police truck. Additionally, police said the driver, and even if you were, you know, you'd have to be doing something that's distracted driving, like fumbling your bong or some shit. Like, I don't even know, man. It's so absurd. So, and by the way, guys, do I think that it's possible to get in a wreck because you smoked too much weed and drove? Yeah, of course. I'm not out there saying that there... See, weed isn't for everyone, and not everybody can drive really great on weed, and, you know... But the thing about weed is when you smoke it, it'll make you paranoid. And if you're not okay to drive, you're going to be too scared to even try it. I promise you that. Weed makes you smart in that way. It makes you like, that looks a little bit like I shouldn't do it. And it makes you think about it a little bit more. It's not like alcohol where you're like, fuck it, I'm driving. And, fuck it, I'm going to smoke this cop car because I can barely even keep my car on the road. That's alcohol. So additionally, police said the driver had been driving too fast for road conditions. Marijuana, however, tends to make people drive more slowly. A 2017 report to Congress from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration found that stoned drivers typically drive slower, follow other cars at greater distances, and take fewer risks than when sober, let alone drunk. And then drunk drivers typically drive faster, follow at closer distances, and take greater risks. And don't mind smashing into the fucking cop cars. Actually, that looks like someone fell asleep at the wheel. Can we be honest here about this? It's really hard to run into something on the side of the road that bad. I mean, it's hard to tell how they even hit it. It's like the cop car was parked a certain way just so you can make that kind of damage happen. I don't know. It's really hard to say, but a lot of people are talking about that shit. Police say the driver was not hurt and consented to the blood draw, but the issue is further complicated by the fact that THC levels cannot accurately be linked to driver impairment due to different tolerance in individuals. For this reason, a state-appointed commission conducted by the state should not set THC limit for drivers. Plus, the role marijuana plays in accidents is often unclear anyway because it can be detected in the blood for days or even weeks after use. And can I also say that it's just absurd that every time someone gets in a car wreck, you got to ask, what kind of drugs or drinking or alcohol were they on? All right? Because, not every accident is caused because somebody's impaired. All right? I mean, not everybody's the best driver out there. Accidents do happen, complete accidents from people that are totally capable. And then there's other factors. This is a reminder that one day legal marijuana can be purchased. Do not smoke and drive, Michigan State Police wrote in another tweet. Just like alcohol, use a ride service, designate driver, or stay home. To be clear, we agree that you should enjoy marijuana responsibly and not drive while impaired. But you should also be aware of modern day attempts to reignite reefer madness. And I would add to that, also be aware that cops are fucking stupid. And if they fucking smell weed, they're going to give you a goddamn you driving stone ticket no matter what. So make sure you got a bottle of fucking, Lysol or some shit to spray because, I mean, seriously, dude, I don't really think there's this big effort out on Michigan's roadways to do this let's get all the stone drivers we can thing, but it's just another one of those things where they can easily give the ticket, and it's your word against theirs, and take it to the jury if you have to, if you do get that ticket, because it's going to cost you about the same either way, whether you get the ticket and have to pay for it or go fight it all the way to the end. And in the long run, it's going to be better that you fight it and win, because it's not going to get you too much jail time, but just having that shit on your record is just like a drunk driving. That's all I got on this, and I did want to mention one thing about legal sales in Illinois, because I stumbled across that while researching this. And so if you live in Illinois, or if you don't, legal sales begin on January 1st at, get this, 6 a.m. So, I don't know, take your pick, party for New Year's Eve or camp out at the dispensary. You have to look at the dispensaries that are medical marijuana and probably look at their website just to determine whether or not they're going to be selling recreational marijuana, and if they are, when they're going to be opening their doors or whatever. But officially, 6 a.m. on January 1st is when sales begin. And, yep. If you're not an Illinois resident, you will only be able to purchase half of the limits. And I do anticipate they will run out of recreational weed. And I don't know, I haven't heard about Michigan running out of recreational weed, but I'm sure it's possible. That's all I got on this. Thanks for stopping by again. And I am about to make another video about the FDA CBD rules bullshit. So stick around for that, and have a good one, man. Later.